I used forensic analysis to prove that Cameron Robbins wasn't attacked by a shark. And by looking at the comments, I can tell that you guys really like this type of breakdown. So today I will do the same thing to figure out if Natalia Grace Barnett is a scam artist or a victim. First, let's look at the elephant in the room. Was Natalia a child when she was neglected by the Barnetts? It's pretty clear that the answer is yes. So the first thing we're going to look at is Natalia's hair. Children, they tend to have lighter hair and it darkens with age. You can see that in many of these images, eyebrows are very light compared to her eyebrow color as an adult, like in this one here and also in this one over here. And look how round her face is, and we don't really see that much of a cheek structure at the side of her face. Now it's hard because her hair is kind of covering it, but you can also see it in this image. When she's not smiling or when she has a softer smile, there's less of that cheekiness. Whereas here, we can definitely see that cheek structure. Look at that lighting right there. You can see that little dent, that little shadow. This is her eye socket and her cheeks are right here. You can kind of also make the argument that in terms of the size of her eyes in relation to the size of her head, her eyes are significantly larger than when she's an adult. With children, their eyes are large and sit larger on their face and actually makes them look less proportional. It doesn't help that in many of these images, she has this haircut that is shorter. That does tend to make her look a bit older, but the smoking gun for me is the teeth. Her baby teeth have fallen out, or new teeth are coming in, and this image was taken about a year or two before she was with the Barnetts.
Look me in the eye and tell me that she looks like a 20-year-old.
Let's also not forget the fact that she definitely has breast at this point, whereas a child, that's not there. Natalia was undoubtedly a minor, but what about the knives and the way she tormented her brothers by relieving herself in the car seat and on their beds?
She would defecate in the car and put her hand into it and try to smear it on Ethan.
It was a frequent occurrence for Natalia to soil surfaces that she wasn't supposed to.
It's been about 10 years since I worked as a social worker, but I had a client that did the same thing in the middle of the school day. My client had a condition that is very common among child victims of abuse, but I couldn't remember the name of this condition, so I asked ChatGPT and this is what it told me.
The condition you are referring to is called encopresis. It is a condition where children or adults cannot control their bowel movements and may soil themselves. It can be caused by various factors such as childhood abuse, constipation, stress, anxiety, and fear.
The fact that Natalia was defecating on herself, even though she should have been old enough to be potty trained correctly, doesn't mean she was being malicious. It could be that she was truly suffering at home and her body responded to that stress in this unexpected and embarrassing way. Also, if we're to believe that Natalia was being beaten as badly as this,
Ow.
then yeah, I would probably start keeping weapons nearby out of fear for my life. By the way, this guy's crazy. The way he speaks and moves is so performative. He reminds me of Christian Bale in American Psycho.
He's been compared to Elvis Costello, but I think Huey has a far more bitter, cynical sense of humor.
In '87, Huey released this. I think their undisputed masterpiece is Hip to Be Square. It's also a personal statement about the band itself. Hey, Paul! Ah!
There's not a truth-telling bone in his body. But yeah, the knives, the threats, some of it makes a lot of sense when we account for the environment Natalia grew up in. All that being said, Natalia may also be a liar. I haven't seen the Dr. Phil interview because Dr. Phil is another grifter and you can't really trust responses to his leading and targeted questions. But if you look at Reddit or YouTube, it's clear that Natalia may also be exaggerating or that there are inconsistencies in her own story. That's something we'll have to suss out when they release her version of events. But just because someone uses lies to embellish their story doesn't mean everything they say is a lie. Let's remember that people are imperfect. They lie, they're vengeful, and they have ulterior motives. And since victims are people too, that means that victims are also imperfect. But they're still victims. And I think it's clear based on my forensic psychological evaluation, photographic evidence, and the stories of abuse by the adopted parents themselves that Natalia was indeed a victim and her parents got away with truly disgusting behavior towards their adopted minor child.